Hello everyone, this is Nick here again with What Game Now with part 4 in our Building a Better Army series. If you haven't checked out the previous parts, go ahead and do that now. But we're going to keep building on this with the idea of synergy. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. So what is synergy? Well, synergy is the ability for models or units to work together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Now, notice if you watched our previous video where we talked about roles, I mentioned elements, and I didn't mention an element there. It's because oftentimes synergy is the glue that makes things into elements. These are those abilities that are often the, hey, you want to be near this, you want to be, within a certain radius of this. So that's why we're not really talking elements here. We're talking more models and units that make up your army. And this is going to be a very important point when it comes to figuring out how different things interact within an element, and in particular, how different elements are going to interact. So, how do we find synergy? Well, oftentimes there's a really easy case for synergy, and then there's a really, I won't say difficult, a more annoying case for synergy. The easiest way to find synergy is to look at special rules. And these are model-specific special rules. And what we're looking for are abilities that make a unit, be it the unit that has the rule, or maybe another unit, better within its given role. So for example, if I have an ability that says around me, I get a bonus damage when attacking something within a certain range, that will accent units that operate within that certain range. It'll make them more effective at their job. We can also look at things that counter a weakness. So for example, I might have a output unit. If you look back at our last video where we talked about roles, output was one of the roles. Output units traditionally tend to have very low durability, or durability is not their priority. If you have an ability that upgrades their durability, it actually helps their primary job because they're going to last longer. All of which is pretty useful. And then lastly, any abilities that specify certain models or units. A really good example for this would be the Veteran Leader ability in War Machine, which basically works only on certain classes of troops. All of these are potential places we can find synergy where this unit in conjunction with something else interacts in a way that makes something greater than the sum of its parts. So rules are a really helpful way to do it. What happens if you don't? Well, this is where things get a little bit harder. The synergy tends to be more positioning based. And when I don't have special rules to work with, usually what I'm looking for is roles that fit well around other roles. Heavy Gear is a good example for this. Heavy Gear has functionally no special abilities like the previous. All of their stuff is generic. So the example I have here is, let's say we have two good units that excel at anti-tank work. If I put them side by side, I simply get the result of their anti-tank capability. I don't get anything greater than that. And if you call back to our definition of synergy here, we want something greater than the sum of its parts. Now, oftentimes those anti-tank units have weaknesses. They have no anti-infantry capability. So what we're looking for here is complementary roles. This unit does this unit does this. And we're looking for particularly combos when they operate in conjunction with each other. They form an element. A good example would be an anti-tank unit with an anti-infantry unit. Now, how does that create more synergy? Don't I just get the sum of the two out of it? Yes and no. So you aren't going to get much more output out of them than you would separately. But by putting them together, you've created a situation where your opponent effectively has a harder time answering one or both units. If you have an anti-tank unit that's comboed with an anti-infantry unit, your opponent can't just send infantry at it. Now the anti-tank unit, while it's not doing any more damage, is more likely to hang around. And if it's more likely to hang around, it has more chances to do its job. Same argument for the anti-infantry unit. If you have an anti-infantry unit and your opponent throws some tanks at it, well, having an anti-tank unit to back up that anti-infantry unit is going to keep the anti-infantry alive. We've created synergy. These units are comboing off of each other to do more than they would have just by themselves. Another example here could be we can have long-range artillery tends to synergize very well with short-range defensive units. So units that operate very well in a reactive role at a very short range, because typically when people go artillery hunting, they're using high speed, which implies shorter range units. By having access to this, we now have our artillery on the table longer. And this is synergy. So with special rules, synergy is fairly direct to find. Without special rules, you can still find synergy too. And oftentimes, I do want to point out the synergy without special rules is pretty universal. Even in situations where you do have special rules, still look at these ideas. Are there complementary rules I can put together? If you have special rules, fantastic. So let's talk about a few other places that we might find synergy that aren't based on roles, which is most of what the last slide was about, or based on special rules. And a good example here would be weapons that combo off of each other. Okay, a good example in heavy gear is the target designator. So target designators and guided weapons in heavy gear, when you combine the two, are very powerful. But it's very rare for a unit to have a target designator and a guided weapon. They're usually separate entities. So there's synergy there. If I have a unit with a target designator with a unit with some guided weapons, I'm getting better results by them operating together than I would independent of each other. So weapon comboing, sometimes these could be setting up. So for example, Tau and 40K have marker lights. Okay, marker lights are a potential source of synergy where these units can do more than the sum of their parts. By putting marker lights on a target, I can get bonuses to hit, remove, and improve various stats about the gun. The last place for synergy I'd recommend looking, and this is a little more exotic, esoteric, whatever you want to call it, is looking for models or units that have specific rules interactions. And a common example I will point to is characters in 40K. So characters in 40K have an entire section of the rulebook explaining how you can target them. Because you can't just shoot them. Okay, there are situations where they are literally, by the rules, you can't shoot them. And they're there to help keep the characters alive. And I understand the point of the rule. But places like this is where you can often find room to, I don't want to use the word abuse, but abuse that thing. We're going to push the limit where all of a sudden now we're getting a unit that shouldn't be as durable is maybe much more durable. A good example here would be back in the last edition of 40K. A friend of mine used his Ultramarines, and he had a character blob where he had it was like Gilliman, Tigurius, Cassius, a Tech Marine, and an Apothecary, I think. Individually, they were all solid characters with various roles, but when you put them together with the character targeting rules, he had complete control over which model you could attack at any time. And that's an example of where looking for a rule-specific interaction, which is what that was. There's no ability on any of those models said they did that, but it was where the rules interacted with them, is where you can often find room to push the limit and find synergy. So guys, that's been it for this video. This is Nick here with What Game Now. Catch you later.
Hey, this is Dave. If you like what we're doing here at What Game Now, go ahead and click on one of the videos which should be on either side of me, or click right in the middle and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell once you subscribe so that you know when we have new videos. Please go ahead and share us with your friends. Let everybody know that we're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all of our subscribers already. And we look forward to bringing you more content every chance that we get.